You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Infinite diversity.
Live long and prosper, and welcome to Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the BQN Podcast Collective. I'm your host for today, Thad, and joining me is my co-host, Chrissy. How are you today?
Well, I'm really looking forward to everybody being gone on shore leave so that I can not have to stand in line for the replicator, the matter synthesizer, and I can just, be gently lulled by the hum of the warp engines. It's like Christmas.
So, Chrissy is where fun goes today.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that. How are you doing today, Thad?
I'm doing all right. I just need to sign the Scorch, and then I've completely filled out Enterprise Bingo.
Good for you.
Also joined with us today is Mike Wong of the Strange New Worlds podcast and the Carnegie Earth and Planets Laboratory. Mike, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing really well. It's good to be back on Infinite Diversity.
We're glad to have you.
Happy to have you. Before we jump into our topic for today, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons who make the show possible, particularly our associate producers, Chrissie De Clerck-Szilagyi and Justin Oser. Listeners, you can hear your name listed as one of our associate producers for a monthly subscription of just $10 at patreon.com/BQN. And with a monthly Patreon subscription of just $5, you can join our Meeting of the Hive Mind on the second Saturday of each month. Watch your Patreon messages for details. So, before we get into the episode, we have two news articles here to talk about. First up, we mentioned a few weeks ago about how Paramount Plus is finally coming to the UK and Ireland later this month. And at the time, we were assuming that, and I think everyone was assuming, that they would be getting all of Strange New Worlds up to that point and then would continue to watch the new episodes with the rest of the world. But that's not quite how it's working out. So, it's June 22nd, I think, is the date. Yes, June 22nd is the date that Paramount Plus debuts in the UK and Ireland. And with it, it will include all of Discovery and Prodigy, as has aired so far, which is great because it will be the first time that the UK and Ireland get Prodigy. And the first time they'll be able to watch Discovery Season 4 on demand. But it will only have the first 3 episodes of Strange New Worlds, and then new episodes will release weekly after that. Which is frustrating, because by June 22nd, we will have already had, because as of this recording, we have had 5 episodes of Strange New Worlds. By June 22nd, we'll be up to episode 7, and the UK is going to be 4 episodes behind. Why? What is the possible explanation for doing this?
They said, they didn't say, but I read in an article somewhere that the intent of this is so that people don't jump into the 7-day free trial, watch all of Strange New Worlds, and then drop it.
But that wouldn't happen anyway.
Yeah.
Or rather, it will happen anyway, because the people who are willing to wait will wait anyway and do that. Mm-hmm. The people who aren't willing to wait would still have to pay for a month to get all of it anyway. So that's a weird justification. Although, I think this pretty much... this and the fact that we have not yet had an announcement for when Lower Decks Season 3 starts, I think this pretty much proves we are going to have a gap, at least in the US, between the end of Strange New Worlds and the start of Lower Decks. Which means we get to take a vacation, Chrissy.
What's that?
Or maybe we'll finally talk about that audio drama from 4 months ago.
Yeah, we can do that. What do you think, Mike? Any thoughts on this ridiculousness?
Well, pack your crazy hats and go fly fishing.
I guess, yeah.
Yes.
But I feel like, because there's got to be a gap, because there's no way they're going to keep the UK a few weeks behind. I mean, at least, God, I hope not.
Yeah. I mean, talk about ridiculous.
Yeah, so my guess is, yes, there's going to be a gap between, on our side of the pond, between when Strange New Worlds ends and Lower Decks begins, where they'll show the rest of the Lower Decks in the UK and Ireland. And it's important to note that it's not just the US that has had these episodes of Strange New Worlds. Canada has them, South America has them, the Scandinavian countries have them. The UK is going to be behind all of those. Admittedly, they're still ahead of all of the countries I haven't mentioned, which don't have it at all yet. But at least... Oh, well.
Yeah, that does not make any sense.
It's just an odd decision to me, and I know I've seen quite a few people... I know I can see the rationale kind of saying they don't want people doing the free trial, but I think what's actually going to happen, because I've seen quite a few people say this, is, they're like, well, if CBS is not going to actually do anything to, and respect the British fans, a lot of them are just going to pirate it and not pay for it at all. And I'm not saying I condone that, but I also can certainly understand why you do that and not want to give them money after all of this.
Yeah.
The other thing that's happened, Anson Mount and several other people in sci-fi and the industry in general released a statement against racism and in support, in particular, of the actress Moses Ingram on Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi. Because, hey, Star Wars fans are being racist again.
What a concept.
And I'm not saying Star Trek fans aren't. There are plenty of racists in the Star Trek fandom too. But in this particular, the latest franchise arguments about racism are coming on the Star Wars side. And it's ridiculous because I think she's doing a great job on Obi-Wan Kenobi. I really like the character. But as has happened before and will continue to happen, there are certain elements of less pleasant people on the internet who are being vocally racist and gross. And Anson Mount is not having that.
Yeah. I love that about him.
I already really liked Anson Mount, but I like that he continues to prove that he is a good person and that he will fight for what is right.
Yeah. He seems like he's actually Captain Pike in real life, very thoughtful and very kind. And, speaking as a member of the Star Wars fan base too, I grew up watching both Star Wars and Star Trek. I'm just brokenhearted over these comments that some of the fan base has been throwing at Moses Ingram, and, really happy for everybody who's stepped up on, both in the Star Wars franchise and also, of course, Anson Mount on behalf of Star Trek in support of her and her work. I haven't actually seen Obi-Wan yet. I've been a little bit too busy to watch the first few episodes, but I'm looking forward to it. And, it's just a shame that what's been going on in the fan base over there. But again, really proud of Anson for stepping up. I think it was, some of Star Trek's diversity actually kind of helped attract me more to it as I was growing up. Like I said, I was watching both, but seeing folks like Sulu and Harry Kim on Voyager opened a space in my mind where I really could say, hey, that's what I could be when I grow up, being an Asian American. And so it was just a little bit harder to try to imagine myself in the Star Wars universe with the, original trilogy and then the reboots, or not the reboots, the prequel trilogy. So I'm really glad that Star Wars is embracing more diversity on screen. And unfortunately it's eliciting such a backlash.
Yeah. As far as I can recall, the first, major, Asian character on Star Wars is Rose Tico in the sequels.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of racist attacks on her, too, as I recall.
Racist and sexist, which is the same thing.
Yes.
Ms. Ingram is dealing with. While we're talking about it, I just want to read his statement real quick, because it's wonderful.
Excellent.
Okay, so this is linked in the show notes. It was on his Instagram. It's gotten passed around a lot since then, of course. So it's a photo of Moses Ingram, and Anson Mount said this. quote, "This is Moses Ingram. She is a singular talent and a recent addition to this Star Wars universe. She has also been targeted by racists pretending to be fans because her mere existence threatens a skewed dystopian fantasy that selectively omits the likes of @real Billy D. Williams, and others. We, the Trek family, have her back." And then some hearts and live long and prosper emojis. And then he tags some people associated with it, including, of course, Moses Ingram. And then what I liked there was that the official Star Trek on Paramount Plus account responded and said there's no place for bigotry in any universe. So that's cool. And then Kate Mulgrew reposted, "Wonderful post, Captains have your back, Moses." So it's gotten a positive response. Not that I wouldn't expect it to, but to actually have the official Star Trek account, repost that and respond to it, that feels good. It's nice,
The official Star Wars account didn't do anything with Anson's post, as far as I know, but they did tweet out a thing about how there's basically they said there are millions of different races of people in the Star Wars universe, and something about choose not to hate or something to that effect, and I thought that was good. I was glad to see that the official Star Wars account was also willing to wade into that.
Yeah, and Mark Hamill put up a nice little video too, which I don't have at my fingertips right now, but listeners, you can Google it after you're done listening to this.
Yes. I retweeted the Star Wars one, so I don't know whether I or the Star Wars account tweets more, but whichever one tweets less, you can scroll through the timeline and find it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Star Trek now. This week's episode was Spock Amok. Mike, what were your first thoughts? What do you think of this episode?
Yeah, really fun episode. I really felt that the major theme of this episode was radical empathy, as they discuss. This idea that stepping into the shoes of others can really help bridge divides, cultural divides between peoples, but then also interpersonal divides, like in the case of Spock and T'Pring's relationship. So, this theme was really apparent in all of the story arcs in the episode. Most apparently, of course, in Spock and T'Pring's switcheroo, which helped them, this radical empathy helped them reconcile their relationship. It also helped in Captain Pike's successful negotiations with the Rongovians. And then it also helped in the sort of, comical aspect where Una and La'an are trying to understand what it's like to be a place where fun doesn't go to die, and try to understand the lower deckers attitude with this bingo game. So I thought it was really a good episode and really pushed this great idea of radical empathy using multiple story threads. The one thing that I guess I didn't enjoy so much about the episode, I guess, it was a really good episode, but I felt like some of the jokes just weren't that funny. I think it's just the timing was off. For a joke to be maximally effective, it kind of has to be unexpected to some degree. But when I was watching a lot of the scenes, I could really detect and forecast, okay, this is supposed to be funny. And that may have actually made it unfunny to me in the end, because I was like, they're trying so hard to be funny, and yet it's not really landing a lot of these jokes for me. So I guess in summary, it's remarkable how good Strange New Worlds is, even though it's very apparent that this ensemble hasn't fully hit their stride yet. This is season 1, and it's so good, but it's not perfect. And I just can't wait till we get to, season 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because can you imagine how mind-blowingly good it will be then when they're hitting on all cylinders?
Yeah, because think about season 1 of TNG, and then how TNG got, in season 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And if we get a quality increase on Strange New Worlds from that, oh boy.
Yeah.
Chrissy, what did you think of this week's episode?
This was fun. I'm not a huge fan of body swapping stories in general, but it kind of worked. You can, what's the phrase? Slap a little Vulcan mysticism on it, and it works. I'm having some issues with T'Pring. We'll come back to that.
Okay. I loved it. Body swapping can be a terrible story, and it can work all right if done well, and I think it worked pretty well this time. It was certainly better than the most infamous case of body swapping in Star Trek, Turnabout Intruder. So...
Low bar, though.
Well, yes. I love this episode. I love that we had last week where we had such a high-stakes, serious episode, and then this week we have a very low-stakes, fun episode. Like, when was the last time we had a fun, not dire situation episode of Star Trek? Because, like, the closest I can think in modern Star Trek is Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, but even that had heavy stakes. It was kind of a fun episode. Like, I'm thinking we'd have to go all the way back to Enterprise to get something fun.
The short trek with Mudd was pretty fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
And
Yes,
the
I had forgotten
one.
the short treks. You're right. The short treks episode, The Escape Artist, is probably the last time we had something like this.
I don't know. The first thing I thought of was I'm wearing my Niners sweatshirt. It was take me out to the Hollow Suite.
Death to the opposition.
I know that there's other... there's been stuff since then. I just can't bring it to the front of my head. But
Right. Yeah, and that is an excellent episode. But I love that we got this. I loved the subplots. I really enjoyed the La'an Una subplot. That was probably my favorite part of the episode. And I liked Dr. Mbenga with his fishing hat. I just really enjoyed this episode. I had a great time. I have not watched a single episode of Strange New Worlds without at some point having a huge smile on my face, and I hope they continue this because I'm just loving this show.
agreed.
Yeah.
Mike, you correctly brought up something we'd forgotten there about.
Oh,
goofy
yeah. I mean,
Star
in
Trek.
terms of lighthearted episodes, I feel like most Lower Decks episodes are like that. And it's actually surprising when they have like a really high stakes episode. And, it's really fun when they do throw that in, the high stakes.
No, you're absolutely right. Lower Decks, I was not thinking of Lower Decks, but I also was like sort of considering that in a different category because like Lower Decks is a comedy. Whereas this Strange New Worlds is not a comedy, it's a drama, but we can still have comedic episodes. And I really like that we went that way.
Yeah.
But yes, you are absolutely right. Almost every episode of Lower Decks is low stakes comedy. And I love Lower Decks. It's probably my second favorite Star Trek after DS9. So, we start off the episode with a Vulcan nightmare.
I like that.
And first off, I would say throughout the entire episode, the music choices were great. And I really loved that we got the Amok Time Vulcan fight music in this episode, in that scene. That was great. I loved that we got... It was basically a complete recreation of the Amok Time arena. Like, everything looked... I saw someone on Twitter say that they really liked how, even though it was clearly a CG background this time, they still made it look like it was shot on a on a set with the colored sky to hide. And I liked that. I liked that it still looked just like the set from Amok Time, and I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was pretty interesting about how different Ethan Peck look when you could actually have it side by side, and how much of a change that makeup can do. Like, that's just not something I think about, as being able to make that kind of a transformation when you're not adding, a quarter inch of rubber or something like that. But that was just kind of wonderfully astonishing, and they did a great job with it.
Yeah, and I think also mad props to Ethan Peck's acting. When he transforms from Vulcan Spock into human Spock, you can immediately see that he starts to like show these expressions of fear and surprise on his face and in his intonation. I thought that was really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like, you pointed this out in the outline. I don't think I noticed when watching it, Chrissy, that Vulcan Spock does cut human Spock's shirt right where Kirk's shirt gets cut in Amok Time.
Yeah, I didn't catch that until the second watch, but I was like, what a nice little detail.
I'm wondering if this is like how Spock realizes that that's a really good move to use in this kind of sparring. Like he remembers his dream while he's fighting Kirk, and he's like, oh yeah, if I just slice him across the chest, that'll be like the killer move.
Yeah, gotta connect the nipples.
Ah. Ow.
Yeah, I know, right?
No comment.
That's basically
okay.
what he does. Okay. Anyway. All right. But this is obviously foreshadowing to the fact that Spock is going to be entertaining to Pring. I think we all know that Spock isn't really in the process of redecorating his quarters, right?
That was kind of weird.
Like, I took that to mean he was, like, trying to explain away the fact that his quarters looked kind of human, because I don't think he's actually redecorating. I think that was just an excuse.
Oh,
yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Speaking of that, because I love how she's like, I'll withhold my criticism until you're done. Like, how about just withhold your criticism? It's cool. You're not living there. Yeah. I could not help, and this is going to be really, like, I don't know, goofy, deep cut or something, but when T'Pring was talking during this stuff where she's criticizing him really and questioning things about him, it was almost like hearing Sarek's words. There's that moment in Unification where Spock says to Picard, if I didn't know better, it's you speak with another man's voice or something like that. I just butchered that quote. But when he accuses Picard of sounding like his father, that's all that was right there. And it was all Sarek, and it was all like, no, you're too human. I think that's a very interesting way to come at that. And if you wanted to really get into the psychological weeds there, one could. I don't want to, but one could.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't even considered, but yes, I do kind of see that it does sound like the sort of thing Sarek would have said. I have some trouble back and forth with T'Pring. Like, it almost like I realize they are trying, and we talked about this in our group chat, Chrissy, that like that you have a different view of T'Pring than I do at this point. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they are very much making T'Pring's actions more understandable, but at the same time, it's this situation where where they want us to feel for Spock, so it also feels like they are making T'Pring seem unreasonable, even when she's not really being unreasonable.
Agreed.
But at the same time, I like that they are fleshing this out and making it less, like, you can clearly see where they're heading, and T'Pring is currently in love with Spock, but she will, because Spock is always married to his duty, she is going to want to get out of that.
Right.
In TOS, we are under the assumption that it was arranged marriage from the beginning. Mm-hmm. In Strange New Worlds, that's clearly not the case. Like, we see their engagement. And I really wonder why there isn't a way that they can just break off the engagement without having to fight to the death.
Yeah, actually, that's something that I wanted to talk about, too. I guess first to touch on our perceptions of T'Pring changing. I like how we're exploring more of her character, because in TOS, she was, I think she only appeared in one episode, right? Yeah. Amok Time. And there she was portrayed as this very cold and calculating, person. But here we're seeing that really she has her heart in the right place. She wants the relationship to succeed, and she wants Spock to meet her halfway. And she's willing to try to work with him towards that, and try to understand him better. But the thing that I really was, confused about, because I did rewatch Amok Time in preparation for Spock Amok, and I was reminded of this stupid Vulcan tradition of Caliphate, right? The idea that, you basically, the woman or whatever, like, asks two men to fight, and the man who comes out the victor gets, like, claim or ownership over the women in that marriage. It's just like, that's just so ridiculous. Like, why do Vulcans still cling to this awful tradition of having two men fight over a woman? It's like, is that logical?
It is not. But, and I mean, they try to say that like, logic goes out the window as far as Pon farr is concerned. But I feel like there's a way you can resolve Pon farr that doesn't involve meeting with a specific person or dying. Like, I feel like there has to be a middle ground there. Like, why isn't there a Vulcan sex worker industry to, like, resolve Pon farr?
Oh, no. Okay, you just made me think of the Athenian Hetaerae, which is not just a regular Athenian prostitute, but they were some of the few women in ancient Athens who could actually read, and so they were like, they were hired for entertainment and then maybe sex, but they were still considered prostitutes. So I was just thinking, the Vulcan equivalent of that, you'd have to have a very serious conversation about something logical first. Like the Hetaerae. All right.
Well, actually, this makes me think about, Quark's holosuite programs. Doesn't he have, like, Vulcan Sex Slave 4 or whatever,
Vulcan Love Slave, yes.
Vulcan Love Slave, right, of course. Yeah,
and on Voyager, Tuvok does resolve his Pon farr in the holodeck with his holographic wife. He goes through some soul-searching about whether or not it's cheating on his wife to do it, but he does end up doing that. So, why are they still doing fights to the death in this, modern era? There are clearly ways around this that don't involve murder.
Yeah.
Why do they come together on top of a mountain wearing interesting clothing like that and have ceremonies with bells?
Right.
Right. Well, I think, probably back in the original series in the 60s, the Vulcans were basically, like, portrayed as this, like, wise old civilization, but definitely stuck in its, like, ways that, like, Kirk is not supposed to understand this Caliphate, and it is supposed to be brutal and not really make too much sense because the Vulcans are this, they're this ancient, they're from history, and I feel like we should, kind of question that and try to update it, or retcon it in a way in this day and age. And I was looking forward to this episode of Strange New Worlds giving a little bit more depth and nuance to Vulcan culture. But I guess it didn't do that. And that's fine because it wasn't really about this whole ceremony anyway. It was about Spock and T'Pring's relationship, and the ceremony only appeared in a dream. But I guess that was my expectation going in, that they would kind of try to flesh this out and make a little bit more sense.
Yeah. And we may still get this fleshed out and make it more sense. I enjoy what we've seen so far. I do. And I like that it is showing us a more human side. It's just because we know how it ends. Because we know how violently it ends. It just feels a bit absurd.
Yes. I don't know how far off I am from a way a lot of people perceived what went on in Amok Time, because according to this Twitter poll that I put up 3 days ago, apparently nobody else thought of this. But, because Twitter polls are scientific and all of that. But I always read that as, first of all, I read it as a last-ditch kind of thing. Okay, like, if you wait so long that you actually do go into Pon farr before the wedding, then you're kind of stuck, right? It's a Vulcan shotgun wedding. Right? And so I always read it. Of course, like you said, we were given to understand that their relationship was they were bonded at age 7. He does say that. And so it was like an arranged marriage, and they had not seen each other since they were 7. Okay. And so I looked at that as, okay, so here's T'Pring, who has been put in this situation where she has not been given a choice. And no, Spock has not been given a choice either, but usually in the way these things work out, it's the woman who's stuck more in the arranged marriage. Not that it didn't happen the other way. Right. But she uses the only tool available to her as a bride in this situation to free herself from it, to empower herself. And so that's how I always read it. And now watching this, I feel like T'Pring is just being a complete jerk. Okay. I don't know. She's being a cheating bitch in Amok Time. I don't know why I'm censoring myself there, but because they already have an established relationship, they obviously communicate on a regular basis. Yes, it's hard to break a relationship off, particularly hard if it's long distance and you already feel like it's over, and there's a lot of factors here, but she really could have. They could have had a conversation prior to that where she said, I'm no longer comfortable with this. I'm no longer in love with you, however you want to say it. And then she could have had Stan, and Spock could have gone on with his life. Accepting, however, the held upon Far would be dealt with the Vulcan sex workers. But I'm sure Kirk could have hooked him up somewhere with somebody, Christine Chapel seems like she would have been happy with it. That will come back to too. So I don't know how I feel about T'Pring. I just, and I've been struggling with this since we met her a few episodes ago, where it's just like, okay, I thought this was something that was more irrational and illogical and keeping with tradition and her empowering herself. Now, in terms of how that was supposed to be interpreted in the 60s, I'm guessing that's what they intended, at least somewhat. Okay, but things are different now. For as long as they're different, we'll see how the politics go. But anyway, that's what I thought. Listeners, I want to know. Tweet at me or say in the chat or whatever in Facebook if anybody else thought that, because I don't know. I don't know why I thought that if it was an unusual thing, but I do remember, like, even as a child, the first time I saw it, that was what so it's not like me plugging historical context after the fact.
I have definitely heard that from other people before,
okay,
so you're not alone. But definitely for me, I find that Strange New Worlds has made me much more sympathetic to T'Pring than I was before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat with that. I didn't really know what to think of T'Pring, but Chrissy, your analysis of it is opening a new way of looking at it for me in terms of how to view her actions in Amok Time. But just being able to see her have a little bit more agency and taking a bigger role in the relationship and the dynamics with Spock, and seeing how willing she was, I think, to do Spock's job while she was in Spock's body. That was really impressive to me. It's like, to take on that responsibility, to learn a little bit more about what Spock's duties are, and to be just that brave to go and, go into a negotiation with a brand new species that you've never met before, people that you don't really know how to communicate with. That's really cool. I really admired her for that.
Yeah, I loved that, because that shows a commitment on her part. And especially because Spock was not as willing.
Yeah.
And I feel like what he would, his taking on her job, in my mind, would have been easier than what she had to do for him. He didn't have the particulars, but he just had to go and pick up this guy and take it back to wherever, so he can be rehabilitated. Which we'll have a whole other conversation about why that isn't necessary. But okay, it's a whole other thing. But yeah, her task in that was a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And jumping ahead of it, because we never stay on.
Oh no,
we never stay in
chronological order.
we
Why
never
would we do
stay
that?
on chronological time here. It's not linear. Jumping ahead a bit, we get when I liked how Pike could tell she was kind of at a loss for words as Spock, and he jumped in, and the way that he did also helped her understand Spock.
Yeah.
It helped with the negotiations, but it also helped with Spock and T'Pring, and I really liked how he was able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Pike basically gives two emotional speeches in this episode, and this first one is a message about the Federation, but not to the Rongovians who are sitting on the other side of the table, but really to T'Pring, who's in Spock's body. And he's telling T'Pring what the Federation is all about and why Spock is so dedicated to it, because it's a set of values and ideals that he's trying to help a society live up to, exploring the cosmos to understand each other, and also through that, trying to understand himself and his own place in the universe. So, way to go, Pike.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I mean, I will continue to sing the praises of Captain Pike.
Yes.
So, also, we have Christine Chapel giving Spock relationship advice, and I loved the Ortegas's reaction to that. She's like, don't get involved in the Vulcan relationship. They will attack you with a Lirpa. I have scars. I
love how she said
I want to hear that
too.
story.
She said it really well. She was like, Lirpa.
She said Lirpa. You're right.
Yeah.
She actually pronounced it correctly, unlike how I just did it. But I want to hear the story of how she got Lirpa scars. That's what I want to know.
That's a short track.
Yes.
That needs to be a short track.
But we definitely see that Chapel and Spock have a friendship, and which, again, gives us a completely different light on a relationship we see in TOS, because TOS sort of shows Chapel as just besotted with a crush on Spock.
Childish.
And yes.
Yeah.
Like, because McCoy even, says something like that when she's bringing the soup to, and here we see that they are very close friends, and I'm sure everyone has had experiences where they have been a very close friend with someone and developed feelings for them. It happens. That's how humans work. And I like that we are seeing that with Chapel. It gives us much more... It makes Chapel a much less one-dimensional character. Now... there are always going to be people who are going to be annoyed about Roger Corby. I think there's still plenty of time for them to introduce and then unintroduce Roger Corby.
Well, somebody tweeted about it. I have to look now. Because, we were talking about that in our chat.
Tricky Bill did it tongue-in-cheek. He was saying that people will be complaining about that, so in such a way that he was not complaining about it.
Yeah.
And
but Akiva Goldman responded, "Stand by." So,
which means we will almost certainly see Roger Corby in Strange New Worlds, which makes sense. Now, we still have some. Strange New Worlds is going to retcon things. That's just how... There's no way they can do good storytelling without retconning things that we saw in TOS. And one of those things that they have clearly already decided when they cast people for this show to retcon is that Chapel joined Starfleet to find Corby.
Yeah,
although we do find that she is... Although we did get her introduced as a civilian on the ship, so they could kind of... find their way around that, but that's still a little bit of a... But regardless, it doesn't matter. They're going to change things. Star Trek has always contradicted itself since, episode 3. So...
Yeah, if they really wanted to stick to it, they would have had, one of the actresses play both Nurse Chapel and Una, right?
Yes.
Yes, and also be the voice of the computer.
Right.
So, yeah.
So we just got to get used to it. It's fine. And it's going to be good.
I kind of would have loved that if Nurse Chapel was just Rebecca Romaine in a blonde wig. I would have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But that said, I also very much enjoy Jess Bush. Is that her name?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Chapel.
Yeah.
So
she's good.
I'm glad they didn't go that way. That said, I do enjoy the computer voice that they have. I do not recall that actress's name, but she sounds very much like. She sounds close enough to Majel Barrett to make you think for half a second, is that? Which I think is really is a very nice nod.
Yeah. I remember hearing back around the time she died that they had her go in and record all of the phonetic alphabet and all of that stuff so that they could use it in the future. And then
I have also heard those rumors, and I hope at some point we see that. I want that voice for my GPS. I think that would be great. For
my phone. For my my Google Home and everything,
Yeah, let me use that voice for Siri. I mean, that would be...
But maybe it was something they intended and didn't get around to doing. Yeah. I don't know.
I am still holding out hope that season 3 of Lower Decks is going to start with Majel's voice saying, "Last time on Star Trek."
And that would be easy.
Because they don't even have to use they can just take the cut from when she did that before. Because they ended season 2 with the Best of Both Worlds cliffhanger music.
Yep.
So it would only make sense that they continue in that same vein and start that episode with Last Time on Star Trek. Which I'm hoping they will do, but we'll see. But we'll talk about that when that season comes out, which is probably in August, but we'll find out.
So before we step away from this, I just want to say I did not rewatch Amok Time around this, and I should have, because I don't remember.
Same.
I don't remember McCoy's reaction to finding out about the Ponfar, but it seems to me that I know Mbenga wasn't on the ship yet at that point, or he hadn't popped in and popped out again, but it seems to me they would have known each other. I don't think you go from having one CMO to the other and not know each other, right? Unless there's something drastic going on.
Well, yeah, and Mbenga is on the ship as another doctor in TOS.
Yeah, but not necessarily the whole time.
That's true.
That's kind of retconned, right? Because he went off to go do whatever. Go be on Vanguard, which used to be the next thing they do. But considering that, and considering the kind of person Chapel is, and considering the kind of person Mbenga is, and what and him having worked on Vulcan, which we now have reestablished, that there wouldn't have been some conversation at some point about how Vulcan Ponfar works. Maybe not in so many words. But then that puts, assuming she does know what's going on, I understand why Kirk wouldn't know what was going on. I understand even why McCoy would not necessarily know what was going on, because he's not an expert in Vulcan biology. If Chapel knew what was going on, there's a lot more to that than her delivering soup.
Maybe I hadn't even considered that angle. So you're saying that perhaps Chapel was, because Spock clearly wanted to keep this all private, perhaps Chapel was trying to go in to say, hey, let's handle this and keep it quiet. So that makes a lot of sense, actually. I mean, obviously that's not what they intended when they wrote the TOS episode. But I like that view of it. I like that.
Especially in relation to the fact that because people have been saying, oh, she's surprised about learning about T'Pring. She's like a wife or something. She says that in the show. And it's like, yeah, so she knew about T'Pring, but she didn't know that at some point she had gone from being fiancé to wife, which I don't think she had. It was just the way Spock was explaining it. So she would have had some information there that nobody else did. And I just, again, puts new color on things.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that interpretation of it. Okay. So we talked about a little bit about T'Pring in Spock's body for the Rongovians. The Rongovians are interesting. They're a very empathetic species, so they basically imitate whoever they're talking to. And I feel like it took Starfleet too long to realize that was what was happening. Because, like, we figured it out pretty quick. But Pike and April didn't figure it out until much later. And I thought it was pretty obvious.
Oh, I didn't. I
really?
thought it wasn't until Pike pointed it out. Because at first you're like, okay, so they're argumentative with the Tellarites. Everyone's supposed to be argumentative with the Tellarites. Why was that a problem? I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
But it's maybe I was too distracted by the other story, but it was just Pike's
No, it was as soon as he started talking to Pike and suddenly became friendly. I'm like, oh, I see what's going on here. So, okay, never mind. Maybe...
No.
No, you proved the show's point that, no, it's not necessarily obvious. So, never mind.
What did you say,
I'm with
Mike?
Chrissy here. I did not catch on to it until Pike started explaining what he was doing to the others. So, Yeah, but upon the rewatch, when you can, really zero in on the dialogue, and the Rongovians literally lead with, we practice empathy and we value that above all else, and then code switch into talking to Pike, as a human rather than like Tellarites. It really made sense and hung together for me. But on first watch, completely went over my head.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
See, you're just radically empathetic.
There we go.
No one has ever accused me of that. All right. So I think once Pike figured out what was going on, he did handle this very well. I love that he tells them straight out, like, this is what the Federation wants from you, and you shouldn't just assume that we are doing this just to be friendly. And he's honest, and that was the only way to get through for them to accept it and like realize, because like for a species who is radically empathetic, they are going to be honest to a fault, because they're going to feel exactly how the other people are going to feel. So we come again to Pike just being really good at his job.
Yeah. Pike's speech number 2 was really special in, of course, his insight and his ability to practice radical empathy with the Rongovians. But I also really loved this speech for its sort of meta purpose in the Star Trek universe, which was to kind of analyze and critique whether or not the Federation is a colonial power in the galaxy. Because like in episode 1 of Strange New World, Pike beams down to this planet that is like at each other's throat, and then basically gives a speech, really powerful speech, which reduced me to tears. But it was also a recruitment speech for the United Federation of Planets, right? It was basically like, you can either blow each other up or get your shit together and join us. Like, why isn't there just get your shit together and like go on your merry way? So I also thought that speech was like, oh, is the Federation basically, a colonialistic power? And here he basically admits it. Like, basically, that's a rightful way to see the Federation if you're an outsider, that you will be absorbed into this other society and homogenized and potentially, basically have a legitimate fear that your uniqueness will be diluted. And I think that was a really interesting moment in Star Trek, because I don't think Star Trek has touched upon that all too much in the past.
No.
Yeah.
Not in that way. We've had times where there's questions of how imperialistic, how colonialist the Federation is. I think.
I mean, there's the whole Discovery season 1, the whole attitude that the Klingons have towards the Federation.
Yeah. I think we ended up talking about. I think I ended up talking about that with Justin and Brandon when we were talking about the Harry Mudd short, the name of which just fell out of my head again. I think
Escape Artist.
Yeah, Escape Artist. I think we ended up on a random tangent for like a half an hour about imperialism in the Star Trek universe. It was either on that one or one of the other short treks, because I remember
random
we were saying
on infinite diversity.
No, never. But I remember we had gone into it saying there isn't a lot to talk about with this, and then an hour and a half into it, we're like, wow, I guess there was. So go back and look at the old Infinite Diversity episodes. That's somewhere in there. But yeah, it is. But then again, that is still, if the UFP is supposed to be the United States to some extent, or let's expand it and say the United Nations, the quote-unquote Western world, which is not really the Western world, but remember, kids, the Western world is Europe and the colonized Americas and North Africa, and that's about it.
And they'll only sometimes let in North Africa.
Yeah, and only sometimes South America. Anyway, right, and I think they wouldn't have intended this at the time, because this was written, 2 years ago? But it does present a very nice analogy for what's been going on with NATO and Ukraine and trying to bring in Finland and I can't remember which other country it is that just we're talking about. So again, we have inadvertent commentary on current events.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, because obviously this would have been written before, just like we talked about in the first episode, this would have been before the Russian invasion of Ukraine was was, on anyone's mind, except probably Vladimir Putin's. Yeah. But yes, I think we can talk for a long time about how colonialist the Federation is, and I think they definitely are, but at the same time, they are also not in like a 19th century Earth colonialist take. Like, the Federation doesn't go in and, pillage planets for their resources and leave them with nothing. So they do give everyone who joins them an equal voice, but of course, now that they have an equal voice with hundreds of other planets, they are no longer in complete control of their own destiny, because those hundreds of other planets can also vote for what happens. So it's a interesting thought.
It's always reminded me of the way Rome handled all their colonies, which was basically to say, do whatever you want internally, as long as it doesn't affect us. But anything that might affect us, you need to talk to us first. So like, if you're going to get into a war with the neighbors that we're going to have to show up for, don't do that. But if you want to, do something within your own country, whatever it is, as long as the taxes are paid, they don't care. And I think probably the Federation works that way in a lot of ways. In
some respects, yes, but in others, no. Because it's made very clear in Deep Space Nine that if the Bajorans join the Federation, that the Bajoran militia would be rolled into Starfleet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that, right there, do Federation members have their own, military forces? It sounds like they don't.
Is the militia the military force or a policing force? Is that like saying that American soldiers are available for NATO and UN operations?
They are, but they make it a little different, though. It's not like this wouldn't be one-to-one. Yeah, because they would be actually part of Starfleet, though, not just working with them. And so that's whether they're a policing force or a military force is a whole other question, because we hear many, 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 many times in Star Trek that Starfleet is not a military organization, and yet whenever they need a military organization, Starfleet is the only one they have. So
yeah, we don't talk about that.
But
anyway,
I feel like I've talked about that on this show before.
We have, absolutely, we have.
Well, I know you have, but I think I think it's even come up for me before. So yeah. It's complicated whether or not joining the Federation is advantageous. There are plenty of advantages, but there are also obviously disadvantages, and reduction in autonomy is going to be one of those disadvantages.
Yeah, that mirrors the relationship storyline as well. So
yes,
it does. I hadn't thought about that.
I just thought of that right now. So,
all right. So, are we gonna meet the doctor that M'Benga was gathering his notes to show?
Did that not feel like we were going to see him like sitting in an office or a bar? Because they were kind of expecting that he was going to had a romantic relationship with this person or trying to initiate one, and then we never saw them.
Yeah, because like Chapel said, don't you want to be able to impress them with your information? So clearly it meant that he was meeting them there.
Yeah.
But the only thing we see of M'Benga is him fly fishing, which is fine.
That's awesome.
I'm happy to see that. Now, that does raise some ethical questions about fishing in the future.
Oh.
So, they no longer kill and eat animals, but fishing is still okay, which is an interesting thought.
Catch and release. I know they often die.
Yes, there is catch and release, and if you ask my father, who is an avid fisherman, fish feel no pain, but I think he's just telling himself that so that he doesn't feel bad about catching fish.
That's a common that's a commonly said thing, and I don't know the truth of it, but
they certainly don't enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Well, no.
So that's I eat fish, I eat meat, so I'm not going to say, this is it's interesting. It seems to go somewhat against what we know of Federation, because we know that they don't kill animals, we don't know they don't eat animals, etc. So, yes, I'm sure he's not frying these fish up after he catches them. But at the same time, catch and release isn't you can make the argument that catch and release is still kind of torture of fish.
There are people who eat real food, real meat. I mean, we see that.
That's true, there are.
Cisco's.
Yes.
All those clams that they were cracking open, or
You're
shrimp,
right.
or whatever they were cleaning.
That's fair.
So
But there definitely are episodes of TNG, though, where like they talk about, and they sound very moralistic about it, you know, very, very much on the moral high ground, that we do not kill and eat animals.
What's the one with the Antikins and the...
Yes, and then I'm also thinking of the one where with Kern, where he's like, "I will try your burned, replicated bird meat." Yes. But also, early TNG was kind of up its own butt with that sort of thing. So,
yes, I'm going to say that there is an allowance for that type of thing if it's not factory farmed, if it's a natural environment, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Eat the fresh clams, whatever.
Natural environment, though.
Well, as natural an environment as you can get when it's been recreated on a space station. How about that?
Right. I was going to say, it's a dome on a space station in orbit of Jupiter, so natural.
Do the fish know that? You know.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I actually can't remember Star Trek ever saying, but maybe, you know, my memory of early TNG is leaky, but I don't remember them ever saying that they don't eat meat anymore, or at least
non-vegetarian.
It's specifically...
Oh, is he really?
Specific
okay.
In, I mean, that's not a good episode, but
what is the name of that damn episode?
What is that episode called?
Anyway, but I think that is about the only time you see that, because any other time, it is used as a way to differentiate, say, with the Klingons. Like if you think about the beginning of Discovery, and going so far as to be, you know, eating the captain. You know, but beyond that, I don't think it's really specific.
Lonely Among Us, that's the episode. It's the one where Picard turns into an energy creature and then gets beamed back onto the ship.
Yeah.
It's not a good episode. But yeah, they do say that. But again, they say a lot of things in early TNG that are interesting. I was going to say, I'm not necessarily even saying that catch and release is bad. I'm saying, but I have definitely seen arguments by people that it is not good.
Yeah, but the whole point of fishing is not necessarily to catch the fish, it's to get out there and relax. Mm-hmm. So...
Oh, yeah.
He could be fishing at an empty lake for all he cares.
I have been fishing several times over the past few years, and in my case, it's really to spend time with my father. I don't actually care one bit about catching the fish.
There you go.
So, yeah. And there have been plenty of times where we've gone out and spent a few hours, you know, standing on the shoreline, casting our rods, and never caught a single fish.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
That's basically all my fishing experiences.
Mine as well.
I have caught fish before, but it is definitely the rarity rather than the common situation.
Yeah.
And it definitely looked like Mbenga is having fun. You can see the smile on his face as he's casting. And I love the fishing hat. It's reminiscent of every experienced rider has their own saddle. Every experienced angler has their own hat.
Yes, and one of the reviews that I read said that might have been a nod to MASH. And the first Colonel,
yeah, Henry Blake.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of cool if it was. But...
Yeah, because he always wore the fishing hat, so that makes sense, yeah.
We got to go here so we can get to the list of Enterprise Bingo. I'm looking forward to talking about that.
Okay, yes. So now we are going to talk about Enterprise Bingo. I love it. It's not bingo.
Okay, I have an explanation for that. Because the ensigns, whoever they are that they catch, say that they had the last square to fill in. So I think what happened was where fun goes to die made it a list instead of a bingo card.
But there's rules on that pad, too. So did she also invent rules to put at the top of it?
Were there rules? I didn't see the rules. I only saw the list.
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me pull it up here.
You got the image.
They had a photo of it on Trek Core's review here.
Rules. Complete 10 items from the list below. Don't get caught.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the only rule? Okay.
Yeah.
But the fact that it says that and it has a rule, like, it tells me that that's like the official list.
Okay.
But
here.
you're right. They do say square.
I can fix that. That's the list of things to do, but it's a bingo card. So you put it into the computer, which randomizes it onto the bingo card.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess since they were saying it was the last square, maybe it's blackout bingo, in which case you don't need to make it a bingo card at all. But or maybe it was just the last square in the line that they were doing.
Yeah, and there was another couple cadets who were going to sit in the captain's chair while they were doing that, and they got to fill in their square because number one was distracted. So,
I think it's cool that the transporter can reflavor gum. That's kind of fun.
I think that's a proof of concept for the replicators.
Yes.
So.
How are these ensigns shooting themselves with phasers without setting off security alarms?
This is why the alarm exists.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, actually, it's in canon, because in Undiscovered Country, they say that if the phaser is fired at a level above stun, it sets off an alarm. I feel like you should still have an alarm if someone fires a phaser on any level. Like, if someone is stunning people, their security should be aware of it.
Wasn't it an unauthorized phaser blast is going to set off the alarm?
Yes.
Maybe these folks are authorizing themselves to take out these phasers,
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. But yes, I enjoy it. I like sneaking a tribble into the transporter buffer.
Dr. Mbenga wins this hands down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
terrible joke.
As any the food replicator challenge durian. As anyone who has ever experienced a durian fruit, it is you certainly wouldn't want to cut one open in a busy mess hall.
No.
Yeah, I have tried durian firsthand, did not enjoy. And then I tried durian ice cream because I thought that would be better, but it was also terrible.
Yeah.
Even ice cream couldn't make durian palatable.
I am not a fan of durian, personally.
I think that's probably one of those things, if you grow up with it, Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
now, you made the point, I saw, that you probably want to talk about with the turbolift.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the turbolift shout. It's been established somewhere else that whoever has the highest seniority is always going to win in the turbolift in terms of this. Because if you have somebody
was that
walk...
established? Where was that established?
I feel like on Next Gen somewhere. I might be totally off. It might be in a book for all I know. But I feel like there was at some point... Oh, okay. No, I'm seeing this. I couldn't tell you who it was. Two people in the turbo lift. Somebody gets on and asks to go to the bridge, and it overrides the other two. I want to say it's Voyager.
Okay.
Because then they're like, "Oh, sorry about that." But I'm not sure. Somebody is shouting it at their phone right now. But yeah. So,
I'm sure.
So if that is the case,
yeah, please tell us, because I'd love to know.
Yeah. If that's the case, then Una's always going to win that one. And so it wouldn't work with the two of them, but it would work with ensigns who have no rank whatsoever, no seniority whatsoever. Excuse me.
True.
And I very much enjoy that they do their spacewalk in a force field without wearing the suits. That's cool.
That was so cool. And that was so beautiful with the other ship.
Yeah.
Oh.
Solar sail
And
ship.
I like the idea that there's one single panel that's left over from when the ship was first commissioned that everybody signs.
Yeah.
That's also cool.
You think it dates back to the NX-01? I was thinking...
Ooh.
Oh, you think it's earlier Enterprises even?
Yeah.
That's possible.
I like that.
I like that idea.
Well, they have sit in the captain's chair easy because they get to do that for real.
Yeah, they've already
set.
done that. Gravity boot hang challenge. Is that hanging a gravity boot somewhere, or is that like walking on the ceiling with gravity boots?
I don't know. Maybe it's, yeah. Maybe it's, you know, you get two people, because a lot of these are like, you know, two people activities. And so my guess is that the challenge is like hang upside down like a bat with gravity boots for longer than your partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you pass out from the blood rushing to your head or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm. They didn't explain Vulcan Marsupial Medical Tricorder Challenge. Is that to
No, but that's a
reset it?
reference.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes. Let me see if I can find that now.
Set the Universal Translator to Andorian. That's pretty straightforward.
Yes.
I could see. That's good. Where? You know, for the whole ship, just on the bridge, or what? But
So, like, no one on the ship understands anything except Hammer, and Uhura probably knows Andorian. Oh, and Uhura does know Andorian. We've already seen that.
And Enar dialect, because I'm going to assume it's not the same.
But I would assume that Hammer probably knows regular Andorian.
Oh,
as well.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Uhura probably does too. Oh, I get what you're saying. Okay, yes. All right. So, the Vulcan marsupial thing is a reference to the Voyager episode Lifeline, in which that's the one where the Doctor is transmitted to the Alpha Quadrant so he can treat Dr. Zimmerman.
Okay.
Actually, on a space station orbiting Jupiter.
Yeah.
And then he went fishing.
and he there's a scene where he's talking about how he ran a scan on Dr. Zimmerman. There was something odd about the results, so he spent a full hour analyzing him and discovered that Zimmerman had reconfigured the tricorder to show the readings of being a Vulcan marsupial.
Perfect. That's good.
So that is a deep cut reference to Voyager, which is great.
Yeah, that's fun. I love how they resolved it with the like, okay, we're okay with who we are, you know, because I think we all need that message on occasion. But I want to see this on Lower Decks. This is a Lower Decks premise if I have ever heard one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, my God.
Cerritos
wonderful.
bingo.
I can see
Yeah.
Boimler complaining and saying they shouldn't be doing it the whole time, and Mariner getting super competitive about it. And yeah, this would be great.
And then Tendi will win
and
by accident.
Yeah, Tendy's gonna win. Yes. All right. So I think we've talked about most everything. Do we have any other canon connections? Or
I wanted to do a brief Mike's Science Corner, if
please,
you
yes.
indulge me. Yeah. So
How can we not do that with you here? Thank you.
Yeah. So a couple of things that I noticed in this episode. There was a mention of Kepler 22b. This is the planet on which Barjan Taor was responsible for causing an uprising. And so, you know, Kepler 22b is obviously named that way because it was discovered by the Kepler Space Telescope, which operated from 2009 to 2018 and had a mission of basically trying to find a bunch of exoplanets by staring as long as it could at a patch of sky and just watching the stars go blink, blink, blink every time an exoplanet passed in front of them. And it found well over 2,000 exoplanets, and Kepler 22b happens to be the first confirmed exoplanet that Kepler discovered in the habitable zone of a sun-like star. So this was way back in 2011. This planet has a radius that is about 2.5 times the size of Earth, but a mass that is like 36 times Earth's mass. And so it's probably more like a mini Neptune than like a scaled up version of the Earth, which means that I don't know what kind of uprising Barjan Taor was inciting on this planet. Maybe like a bunch of 10 sea-like creatures floating in that atmosphere. And then Barjan Taor, when T'Pring, Spock and T'Pring's body, along with Nurse Chapel, come to apprehend him, he throws this insult at Nurse Chapel, which is like, humans evolved from apes, and you seem to like still have a lot of these qualities. And I'm just like, what does he think Vulcans evolved from? It's got to be very similar, you know. like humanoid form doesn't just pop out of nowhere. Evolution's a gradual process. So anyway, that was like kind of funny. And then of course we've been talking about this Rongovian solar sail ship, which, and we've seen solar sail ships in Star Trek before. I think DS9 is probably the most famous case. But this is actually, a real kind of propulsion it's a real concept. And there is a solar sail called Light Sail 2, which was launched by the Planetary Society in 2019, which was basically a proof of concept that you can actually sort of tack into the momentum of starlight and change your course in this way. And so I think, it was really cool. And again, a beautiful scene to see that solar sail ship kind of take flight over Una and La'an. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention again that it was really cool to see a space station in orbit of Jupiter, and just to see like Jupiter's moon sort of hanging out in the background of those shots. I still don't really understand why there's a space station in orbit of Jupiter, because especially one that grows a bunch of plant life in giant domes, because Jupiter is 5 times farther from the sun than Earth is, and the amount of sunlight that you would get at that distance goes by the square of that distance. So it actually gets 25 times less sunlight out there. So growing a giant forest, a very foresty environment, seems a little bit implausible, but who knows? They probably have all sorts of, artificial generators of light out there to help them out. And, it just makes for a cool scene to see something in orbit of Jupiter.
Well, they do explain the forest in the first episode of the show. They talk about how those habitats were launched into space during World War III to, preserve the plant life. And then they had grown too large to actually be able to take them back to Earth. So that then they built the space station around them. Now, presumably, originally they were in orbit of Earth, and then they moved them to Jupiter.
Yeah, I think they even say that. Yeah. I might be wrong on that part, though. But yeah, I mean, they got some artificial sunlight going on at the top of those domes.
So, yeah, if I'm correct in assuming, because of that incredibly higher mass on Kepler-22b, we would be crushed like tin cans if we tried to land and walk on that planet, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's not going to be a pleasant time, and it's most likely got a really thick hydrogen-dominated atmosphere, so we probably wouldn't be able to breathe in it. So you've got the pressure, you've got probably really high temperatures down on whatever surface of that planet there might be, and then you just wouldn't be able to breathe. So there's some truly alien life forms that really, resonated with Barjan Ta'or's message, and really, had that uprising. But well, it's cool. I love hearing about real life exoplanets make their way into Star Trek now, because one thing that I love to say to public audiences whenever I give Science of Star Trek talks is back in the 60s, we hadn't discovered a single exoplanet yet. And so Star Trek basically predicted all of these other worlds out there, not knowing if they actually existed. And today we now know that they do exist. And to see them iterate back and make their way into Star Trek is just, so special.
Oh,
yes, that is really cool. I mean, I think a lot of people, there was this very good assumption before we knew that they existed, that they must exist with all those stars out there. The odds of them not existing would be ridiculous. But yes, I like that we are seeing real planets mentioned in Star Trek. Also, it is worth mentioning that Kepler-22b is also the planet where the HBO Max TV series Raised by Wolves is set.
Oh,
okay.
I haven't seen it, but I saw someone else talking about that, and I looked it up, and yes, it is a sci-fi series that is set on that planet. I don't know how they get around the unbreathable atmosphere and really heavy mass, but that's where it's set, apparently.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a moon, and they just don't want to say B/1.
That's also possible.
Yeah.
No, I got no canon connections. I mean, every episode is all canon.
The big one was that Voyager one. I mean, obviously everything with Amok Time, but I think we've covered pretty much everything. So, my final thoughts are that this episode was a nice breath of fresh air, a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I really loved watching it.
Yeah, one of the things that I really appreciated about this episode was getting to know Spock a little bit better. Like, Spock has been so used in Star Trek over and over as the outsider, right? To give an outsider's point of view to help to see ourselves as humans better. But in this episode, Spock is facing such human problems, like trying to balance a relationship with dedication to work. That's something that I've had to deal with. Learning to try to, understand yourself at the intersection of multiculturality, being half human and half Vulcan. That's something that I'm still working on, not half human, half Vulcan, but being Asian American. And then, just I've always loved Spock's character, but I've never felt quite so resonant with him as I did when I was watching this episode, because I was seeing him go through such real life dilemmas. And, we were talking about how radical empathy is the theme of this episode, and how switching into somebody else's shoes is, a really good way of trying to bridge gaps. I really felt like I was in Spock's shoes while I was watching this episode. And so the radical empathy extended all the way to me as the viewer, which I thought was really beautiful too.
Oh, I love that.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I did really enjoy this episode. It was nice to get something light, because if the title of next week's episode is any indicator, what is it? Lift us where suffering cannot reach.
Oh gosh.
That sounds really heavy, so I think we'll be glad to have had a little moment to breathe, and then whatever this is going to be. So,
Yeah.
As we say at the end of every one of our episodes, just bring me more. And whatever this episode is will bring me more. That's fine, but it's nice to have the moment to kind of relax.
Yes. Well, that definitely sounds like it's going to be a bit of a deep episode.
Yeah.
All right. So, Mike, thank you very much for joining us today. Where can listeners find you online? Do you have any current or upcoming work that you want to mention?
Oh, totally. Yeah. So you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Miquai, Miquai. And I do a Science of Star Trek podcast called Strange New Worlds, which was named long before the show was named. So you can follow that on Twitter at Science of Trek, and also look it up wherever you get your podcasts if you're interested in the intersection between science and Star Trek. And I'm giving a public virtual lecture on June 16th. It's through my institution, the Carnegie Institution for Science. They do these outreach lectures where people talk about the science that they do for a general audience, but they asked me specifically to talk about the science of Star Trek, because they know that I do this podcast and that I really love Star Trek. And so you can register for that wherever you are in the world. Again, June 16th, and maybe we can put a link in the show notes or something like that.
Already done. And
Absolutely.
I am super looking forward to that.
Yeah.
All right, Chrissy, where can people find you when you are not lightly stunning your friends?
Ow! That stings. Did anybody else think that's something that they should have experienced at some point? Because I feel like part of your training would be to get stunned at some point.
I would think so,
but
yeah.
maybe not so low that it just burns your skin. I don't know. Anyway. Right, so in addition to here on Infinite Diversity, you can find me on History with the Szilagys here on BQN, and that's a twice-weekly history short podcast that I do with my fellow historian partner Jason. I'm also happy to chat about our shows in the BQN Collective on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter at The Goddess Livia, that's TheGoddessLivia, where I tweet about Star Trek history and leftist politics. Been a little more on the political end lately, as you might have known. Thad, where can people find you when you're not trying to figure out how to get out on the hall to sign the scorch mark?
Best place to find me is on Twitter, where I'm at Tyrannicus, that's Tyranicus, where I talk about a lot of things, but mostly Star Trek. You can also catch me on License to Spiel, which is the James Bond film podcast I do with my friend Carl. That's license spelled with a C, like the British do. And you can also hear me on an upcoming episode of Mickey's Marvels here on the network, where I talk with Chris Tribuzio about the film The Rocketeer.
So speaking of Mickey's Marvels, that's one of our other great shows here on the network. There's also Galaxy Class, All Good Things. I mentioned History with the Szilagys earlier. Right, yeah, and I almost forgot, because they just got added a few weeks ago, but of course we have Union Federation on here, and the Orville just started up again, so they're going to be talking about that soon. And then we have a brand new Patreon perk, which is Amy's Math Corner, I think?
Amy's Math Moment.
Amy's Math Moment, yes. So definitely listen to those. If you're not a patron, sign up, because those are a lot of fun.
Previously on BQN. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast.
Maybe Chekhov was an ensign while the first season was happening, and then he got promoted, and so he got screen time.
Oh, look at you making it all work.
Headcanon.
All right.
He was there on the ship. Maybe he was in the bathroom whenever the camera was on. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mickey's Marvels, a Disney podcast.
He believes in his own purpose. That's basically what it is. He's not a cult leader because he drew a card from a Cracker Jack box. He believed in the god of Amit, and he believed that he was the guy. He was the one, and Amit was the right one to follow. Listen to me, and follow my ways.
Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast.
All very interesting and very, very Star Trek-y to kind of just hit you on the head with a little bit. But at the same time, you would think a advanced society that supposedly has eliminated these things would not so easily fall into that trap of, just another form of bigotry and racism. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, but I get, for the purpose of the episode, just hit him on the head that Federation against all this stuff. Eugenics was bad. We don't want to do it again, so we're just going to completely toss it out the window. Can't do it. Sorry, bye.
You will find these and more of your favorite podcasts on BQN.
Thank you very much for tuning in to Infinite Diversity. Thank you to Zach Tripp for the wonderful theme music and Tony Robinson for the awesome show art. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast player, and don't forget to rate and review us there as well.
If you'd like to reach out, you can find the network on Twitter at BQN Podcasts, or our show specifically at IDIC Podcasts. You can also talk about any and all of the BQN podcasts in our Facebook group, the BQN Collective. On the next episode, we'll be talking about the next episode of Strange New Worlds, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. Until then, peace and long life.